I couldn't believe my eyes when I found out the Pinewood Estates HOA was slapping 72 luxury homes on my family's land my grandpa Jack fought tooth and nail to keep. But when I unearthed his hidden surveys, the truth hit like a freight train. Their entire shiny development, including their smug president's own house, was legally mine. You should have seen their jaws drop when I stormed their precious meeting and flipped their world upside down. Hey, real quick, ever had an HOA try to pull a fast one on you? Drop it in the comments because I need some solidarity while I spill this wild ride. It all kicked off with a phone call that yanked me out of my Chicago apartment life faster than you can say Karen. I'm Ethan Carter, by the way, 32, overworked marketer, and apparently the new owner of a 150-acre mess in Willow Springs, Tennessee. That Tuesday morning, I was chugging coffee, still in my boxers, when Mrs. Linda Hayes, Grandpa's neighbor and unofficial watchdog, blew up my phone. Ethan, they're ripping your land apart, she yelled, her voice shaking like she'd just seen a ghost. Yellow machines tore into the West Fields yesterday. Signs everywhere, Pinewood Estates, 72 luxury homes, $525,000 and up. Get your butt down here now. My heart stopped. Linda wasn't some drama queen. She'd been Grandpa's rock for decades, keeping an eye on his farm ever since he passed last April. I'd been too slammed with work to visit, and the guilt hit me like a punch to the gut. Wait, what? My land? I stammered, already yanking a shirt off the floor. No mistake, she snapped. They've got the whole west side marked off like they own it. Hurry. I didn't even pack, just grabbed my keys, bolted to my car, and floored it out of the city. The 5-hour drive was a blur of white-knuckled rage and memories flooding back. That farm wasn't just some plot. It was where Grandpa Jack taught me to fish, where we'd laugh over burnt marshmallow campfires, where he'd growl, "Ethan, this land's been Carter's since 1895. Don't you dare let it go." Now some HOA vultures were clawing it apart, and I wasn't about to let that stand. Pulling onto the gravel road, I barely recognized the place. The peaceful hum of crickets was drowned out by roaring engines. Just choked the air as I hit the hill overlooking the West Fields. My stomach dropped. Bulldozers were shredding the earth where Grandpa's wheat used to sway. Workers in hard hats scurried around, planting stakes like they were claiming a gold rush. A giant sign screamed, "Pinewood Estates, 72 luxury homes starting at $525,000. I slammed the car door so hard it echoed. There she was, Karen Mitchell, Pinewood's HOA queen bee, standing like she owned the universe. Navy blazer, perfect hair, clipboard clutched like a shield. She was mid-yell into her phone when I charged up. "What the hell's happening here?" I barked. She hung up, flashing a smile so fake it could have been plastic. "I'm Karen Mitchell, HOA president. We're building our new community, fully permitted." "And you are?" Her tone dripped with condescension. "Ethan Carter," I shot back, "and this is my land. My grandfather, Jack Carter, left it to me. He'd never sell." Her eyes narrowed, but that smile didn't budge. "Oh, sweetie, the sale closed 9 months ago. Maybe he forgot to mention it. Call our lawyers if you're confused." She shoved a business card at me and turned away, already dialing someone else. My blood boiled. Grandpa forgot? The man who'd rather wrestle a bear than sell an inch of his farm? No chance. Something was rotten, and I'd bet my last dollar Karen knew it. Back at the farmhouse, Linda was pacing the porch, sweet tea in hand and fire in her eyes. "They started sniffing around 5 months ago," she said, slamming the glass down. "Jack was livid, kept saying they were crooks trying to steal what's yours. He was digging through papers the day before he went into the hospital for good." I collapsed into a chair, head spinning. "He never said a word about selling," I muttered. Linda's gaze softened. "Because he didn't. That land was his heart, and yours." Sleep wasn't an option that night. The machines had quit, but my mind wouldn't. How did they pull this off? Grandpa's old desk was calling me, years of his scribbled notes and secrets locked away. I had a hunch whatever they were hiding, he'd left me the key to blow it wide open. Karen Mitchell thought she'd won, but she didn't know who she was messing with or what I'd find by morning. By the time the sun peeked over the horizon, I was elbow-deep in Grandpa Jack's attic, surrounded by dust and ghosts of the past. I hadn't slept a wink. How could I? Knowing Karen Mitchell and her HOA cronies were carving up my family's legacy like it was Thanksgiving turkey. Every creak of the old farmhouse felt like Grandpa whispering, "Keep looking, Ethan." And then I found it. A rusted metal box stashed under a loose floorboard, stuffed with papers that could turn Pinewood Estates into my personal wrecking ball. The attic smelled like mildew and memories. Old fishing rods leaned in the corner, A cracked baseball glove I'd used as a kid sat on a shelf. But I wasn't here for nostalgia. I tore through boxes of tax records, seed catalogs, anything that might explain how Karen's crew got their claws into 150 acres that weren't theirs. Hours ticked by, my hands black with grime, until I kicked a floorboard by accident. It wobbled. My pulse spiked. I pried it up with a screwdriver, and there it was, a small, dented box, locked tight. The key dangled from a nail underneath, like Grandpa knew I'd come sniffing. Inside, I hit gold. The original deed from 1895, his will naming me heir, and a stack of yellowed surveys. But the real prize was a letter in his shaky handwriting. "Ethan," it started, "if you're reading this, someone's trying to take what's ours. Developers have been after this land for years, slimy bastards. I never sold a damn inch. Check the 1902 survey against the counties. The truth's in the lines." My hands shook as I unfolded the map. The boundaries stretched way farther west than I'd ever known. 180 acres, not 150. According to this, Pinewood wasn't just building on my land. They'd already built half their ritzy neighborhood on it, including Karen's precious clubhouse. I stumbled downstairs, maps and papers spilling everywhere, and spread them across the kitchen table. The 1902 survey showed our land gobbling up their tennis courts, their overpriced cul-de-sacs, even part of the golf course they bragged about on their website. My jaw tightened as I cross-checked it with a newer map I'd printed off the county site. Somewhere along the line, 30 acres had vanished from the records. This wasn't a mix-up. This was theft, and I'd bet Karen's manicured fingers were all over it. I needed a plan, fast. First stop, Tom Bradley, the only property lawyer in Willow Springs I could track down at 7 a.m. His office was a cramped trailer off Main Street, smelling of stale coffee and ink. Tom was a wiry guy in his 60s, with a tie that screamed 1985. "You're saying Pinewood's building on your land?" he asked, peering over his glasses as I dumped the documents on his desk. "Look at these, the 1902 survey versus the counties today." He traced the lines, his eyebrows climbing higher with every inch. "Well, I'll be damned," he muttered. "This isn't just the new site. They're existing homes, maybe 15 of them, are on your property too." My heart pounded. How'd they pull this off? Tom leaned back, rubbing his chin. "County records show a boundary tweak in 1992, shrunk your land by 30 acres. Says Jack signed it, but the signature's shaky. He was in chemo that year, right?" I nodded, fury bubbling up. He could barely hold a spoon, let alone sign a deal. Tom's eyes narrowed. "That's fraud, Ethan. We can file an injunction to stop construction, but proving it after 30 years? That's a war." I didn't care about the odds. I was done letting Karen strut around like she owned my roots. While Tom typed up the emergency filing, I bolted to the county clerk's office, a squat brick building buzzing with fluorescent lights. The clerk, a bored woman named Emily Harper, barely looked up until I slapped the old survey down. "I need everything you've got on Pinewood Estates," I said. She sighed but disappeared into the back. 2 hours later, she handed me a stack of files that smelled like a basement, and oh, they were juicy. Buried in the mess was a web of LLCs tied to Pinewood. Mitchell Properties, Sunshine Holdings, half a dozen others. The same names popped up everywhere. Karen Mitchell, her husband David Mitchell, County Commissioner Brian Foster, Planning Board Chair Lisa Grant. Then I saw it, a $12 million loan for the new development, approved 3 months ago, with my land listed as collateral. My blood ran hot. They weren't just building, they were banking on stealing it outright. I snapped photos of every page, my mind racing. Karen thought she could bury me with permits and smiles, but Grandpa had outsmarted her from the grave. As I stepped into the afternoon sun, my phone buzzed. "Tom. Injunctions filed. Construction's on hold till the hearing next week. Get ready, though, they'll hit back hard." I grinned, folding Grandpa's letter into my pocket. "Let him try," I whispered. Karen had no clue the storm I was about to unleash, and it was brewing right under her nose. The next morning, I woke to the sound of silence. No bulldozers, no engines, just the chirping of birds over Grandpa Jack's fields. The injunction had hit Pinewood Estates like a sledgehammer, and I couldn't help but smirk imagining Karen Mitchell's perfectly Botoxed face twisting in rage. But I wasn't naive. Quiet didn't mean surrender. She'd come swinging, and I needed more than old maps to bury her. Lucky for me, The cracks in her little empire were already showing, and I was about to pry them wide open. I headed straight to the construction site, injunction papers in hand, ready to see the damage frozen in time. The place was a ghost town. Half-dug foundations gaped like open wounds. Orange stakes littered the dirt, and that smug Pinewood Estates sign loomed like a bad joke. Karen's black Lexus was parked by the site office, and there she was, pacing in her heels, phone glued to her ear. When she spotted me, her eyes flashed with venom. I marched up, slapping the court order into her hand. "Construction stops now," I said, voice steady. "Your boundaries are a lie." She snatched the paper, scanning it like she could will it away. "This is absurd," she hissed, her composure fraying at the edges. "We've got every permit, every approval, years of planning." I stepped closer, locking eyes. "Based on a forged signature from 1992. I've got the originals, Karen. Your new houses, your clubhouse, half your precious golf course, it's all on my land." For a split second, panic flickered across her face, raw and real, before she masked it with a sneer. "You'll regret this," she said, low and icy. "You think you can waltz in here and undo everything I've built? I know people, Ethan. Big people." Her threat hung heavy, but I didn't flinch. Funny thing about people, they don't like being lied to. "Enjoy your day." I turned and walked off, feeling her glare bore into my back. She thought she could scare me off with connections, but I'd already seen her playbook in those county files, Brian Foster, Lisa Grant, her husband David pulling strings. What she didn't know was I'd just lit a match, and her perfect little world was dry tinder. Back at the farmhouse, Linda was waiting with a plate of biscuits and a worried look. "Saw Karen's car peel out of here like she was chasing the devil," she said, sliding the food across the table. "What did you do?" I grinned, grabbing a biscuit. "Just served her a reality check. But she's not done. She's got the county in her pocket." Linda's jaw tightened. "Always has. Brian Foster's been cozy with her since he got elected. Folks round here grumble, but no one's ever stood up to her." That's when my phone buzzed. Tom Bradley. "Ethan, you've got a problem," he said, voice tense. "Pinewood's countersuing. Claims your surveys are fake. Says you're harassing them. They're pushing to lift the injunction." My stomach flipped, but I kept cool. "Let him try. We've got proof." Tom paused. "They've got money and pull. Karen's husband golfs with Judge Harper every weekend. We need more ammo fast." I hung up, adrenaline pumping. If Karen wanted a fight, I'd give her one she'd never forget. I grabbed my laptop and dove back into the county records I'd photographed. That's when I struck oil, a memo from 1992, buried in the planning board minutes. It approved the boundary shift per Jack Carter's request, signed by Lisa Grant, except the handwriting didn't match Grandpa's at all. Better yet, a payment of $25,000 from Sunshine Holdings to a consultant named Brian Foster showed up the same month. My hands shook as I saved the screenshots. This wasn't just fraud, it was a conspiracy, and Karen's crew was neck-deep. I needed to take this public. My old high school buddy, Sarah Evans, worked at the Willow Springs Herald. We hadn't talked in years, but she picked up on the second ring. "Ethan Carter? What's got you calling me at noon?" She laughed. "Trouble," I said. "Pinewood's HOA stole my land, forged docs, shady deals, the works. I've got evidence, but I need it out there." Her tone shifted, all business. "Spill it." I sent her the files, and she whistled through the phone. "This is big. I can't print accusations without airtight proof, but I'll dig into their permits. They rushed this project through last spring way too fast." As Sarah worked her angle, I drove to the Pinewood Estates entrance, where a dozen residents milled around, staring at the stalled construction. A guy in a flannel shirt, Mike Larson, I'd later learn caught my eye. "You the one who stopped this?" he asked, arms crossed. "Yeah," I said. "It's my land." He nodded slow. "Good. Karen's been bleeding us dry with fees. $300 last month for road upkeep. That never happened. My buddy got fined $450 for a kiddie pool. We're sick of her." I blinked, gears turning. "How many feel that way?" Mike smirked. "More than she thinks. She's got her loyalists, but plenty of us are fed up." That was it, the spark I needed. Karen ruled through fear, but fear only works until people fight back. By nightfall, I was sketching a plan: expose her fraud, rally her enemies, and hit her where it hurt most, her own neighborhood. Grandpa always said, the best fight's the one they don't see coming. Karen was about to learn that the hard way. By the next afternoon, Karen Mitchell's perfect little kingdom was starting to smell like panic. Word of the injunction had spread through Pinewood Estates like wildfire, and I was fanning the flames. I'd spent the morning printing flyers, 200 of them, bold and simple. Emergency meeting tonight. Your home's at risk. With Grandpa Jack's surveys photocopied on the back, I had a weapon sharper than any lawyer's pen. Karen thought she could bully me into the dirt, but I was about to show her what happens when you poke a hornet's nest full of fed-up neighbors. I started at the Pinewood entrance, slipping flyers under windshield wipers and into mailboxes. A woman in yoga pants, Jenny Brooks, caught me mid-act. "What's this about?" she asked, squinting at the paper. "Karen's HOA is building on my land with fake boundaries," I said, handing her one. "And it's not just the new houses, 15 of your existing ones might be mine too." Her eyes widened. "Wait, my house? We've been here 3 years, paid $600,000. I nodded. "Check the survey. I'm not here to take it, but Karen's lying to all of you." Jenny's face hardened. "She fined us $200 for a birdhouse last month, said it wasn't approved." I'm in. That was the first domino. By noon, I'd hit every street, dodging Karen's security goons in their white SUVs. Mike Larson flagged me down near his place, a thermos of coffee in hand. "People are buzzing," he said. "My neighbor got a $500 fine for a basketball hoop. Karen's rules are choking us." "Where's this meeting?" I grinned. "Community Center, 7 p.m. Spread the word." The day blurred into a frenzy: phone calls, whispers, doors opening to angry faces. A single mom, Rachel Ortiz, nearly cried showing me a $700 bill for a fence she'd built to keep her kids safe. "They threatened to lien if I didn't pay," she said, voice shaking. "I worked 2 jobs. Every story fueled me more. Karen wasn't just stealing my land. She was squeezing these people dry. Grandpa's voice echoed in my head. "Protect what's yours, Ethan, and what's right." This wasn't just my fight anymore. By 6:45, the Pinewood Community Center was packed, standing room only, at least 120 people crammed in. The air buzzed with nerves and anger, a sea of flannel and hoodies glaring at the empty stage. I'd barely set up my laptop when Karen stormed through the double doors, her red blazer screaming power move. "This is unauthorized," she barked, heels clicking as she shoved toward me. "Everyone out, now." Mike stood up, arms crossed. "Or what, Karen? Another fine? We're done bowing to you." The room erupted: claps, shouts, a few whistles. I stepped to the mic, heart slamming against my ribs. "I'm Ethan Carter. My grandfather owned this land, 150 acres, not the 120 Pinewood claims. They faked the boundaries in '92, and I've got proof." I held up the 1902 survey, then clicked my laptop to project it on the wall. Gasps rippled through the crowd. "This isn't just about me," I went on. "It's about every fine, every rule, every dollar she's taken from you. We can fight back, together." Karen lunged for the mic, but Jenny Brooks blocked her. "Let him talk," she snapped. For the next hour, people poured out their guts. Rachel told her fence story, tears streaking her face. An older guy, Tom Hayes, growled about a $400 fee for a shed he'd had 10 years. She said it violated aesthetic standards, he spat. Karen sat in the back, texting furiously, her face a mask of fury. I could almost hear her calling in favors: Judge Harper, Brian Foster, her whole corrupt crew. When the room quieted, I laid out the plan. We formed the Willow Springs Community Alliance. We renegotiate the boundaries fairly. No more insane fines, no more secrets. Who's with me? Hands shot up, 87 families, right there. Mike clapped me on the shoulder. "You've got balls, man." I smirked. "Thanks to Grandpa." As people filed out, buzzing with hope, a quiet figure slipped up: Greg Palmer, Pinewood's treasurer. He looked like he'd seen a ghost. "I shouldn't be here," he muttered, glancing at Karen still fuming across the room. "But the books, they're a mess. Dues go up, reserves vanish. I've got records, Ethan." "She's siphoning cash." My pulse jumped. "Can you prove it?" He nodded, slipping me a USB drive. "Tomorrow, my office. Don't tell a soul." Before I could thank him, Karen stormed over, finger jabbing my chest. "You've just signed your own eviction notice," she hissed. "I've got the sheriff, the judge, everyone. You're finished." I met her glare. "Keep talking, Karen. It's all on record." Her eyes flicked to Sarah Evans, my reporter friend, tucked in the corner with a recorder rolling. Karen's mask slipped, just for a second, before she spun and slammed the door behind her. My phone lit up with a text from Tom. "Environmental reports in. You're sitting on protected wetlands, game changer." I grinned into the dark. Karen thought she was untouchable, but her throne was crumbling, and I was just getting started. The air felt electric that next morning, like the calm before a Tennessee thunderstorm. I'd barely slept, clutching Greg Palmer's USB like it was a live grenade. Karen Mitchell's threats echoed in my head: sheriff, judge, everyone. But the fire in my gut burned hotter. Grandpa Jack hadn't raised a quitter, and with Pinewood's residents rallying behind me, I was ready to swing back. What I didn't expect was how fast her empire would start imploding, or how dirty she'd play to claw her way out. I was halfway through my first coffee when tires crunched gravel outside the farmhouse. Peering through the blinds, I saw 3 white SUVs, Pinewood security plastered on the sides, boxing in my driveway. My stomach lurched. 3 guys in cheap uniforms climbed out, one slapping a thick envelope against my door before I could even yank it open. "Cease and desist," he grunted, smirking like he'd won something. "Withdraw your claims or Pinewood's suing you into next year." I ripped it open, pages claiming my surveys were fabricated, accusing me of defamation, demanding $50,000 for damages to community morale. My hands shook with rage. Morale? She was the one fining people for birdhouses. Before I could fire back, my phone rang, Karen's name flashing like a warning siren. I answered, braced for venom. "Morning, Ethan," she purred, syrupy sweet. "Like your new driveway decor? That's just the start. Drop this nonsense, and it all goes away, plus a nice $200,000 for your trouble." Her voice turned cold. "Or I'll make sure you can't step foot in Willow Springs without a citation." I laughed, bitter and loud. "You're blocking my own driveway with concrete slabs on my land. That's harassment." She didn't miss a beat. "No, sweetie, that's HOA jurisdiction. County says it's our access road. Think it over. You've got till noon." She hung up, and I stared at the slabs now trapping my car. My water pressure dropped to a drip mid-thought. Karen's doing, no doubt. I called the utility company, and a bored voice mumbled, "Scheduled maintenance, sir. No ETA." Then the power flickered off. I slammed my fist on the counter, spoiled milk stench wafting from the fridge. She was choking me out. Water, power, access, hoping I'd cave. But every move she made just poured gas on my resolve. I grabbed Greg's USB and bolted to his office on foot, dodging a Pinewood security goon who trailed me half a mile. Greg's place was a tiny accounting shack off Elm Street, blinds drawn tight. He ushered me in, sweat beading on his forehead. "She knows I talked," he whispered, locking the door. "Called me at 3 a.m., said I'd regret crossing her." He plugged the drive into his laptop, pulling up spreadsheets that made my jaw drop. $385,000 in special assessments siphoned to Mitchell Properties over 2 years. "Road repairs, pool upgrades, half the work never happened," he said. "The rest went to her husband's landscaping firm, her sister's consulting gig. It's a racket." My phone buzzed mid-scroll. Sarah Evans. "Ethan, you sitting down?" she said, voice trembling with excitement. "Those wetlands on your land? They're a nesting ground for the red-cockaded woodpecker, endangered species. Federal law says no building within 200 feet. Pinewood's permit skipped the environmental check. Someone bribed the inspector." My heart leapt. "You're kidding." "Nope," she said. "Front page tomorrow. HOA fraud threatens rare bird." Karen's toast. I barely thanked her before another call cut in. Tom Bradley, my lawyer. "Bad news," he barked. "Karen's got the sheriff serving you an eviction notice. Claims the farmhouse violates 12 codes. They're coming now." Panic clawed my chest, but Greg's files and Sarah's scoop lit a fire under me. "Stall him," I said. "I've got something bigger." I hung up, turning to Greg. "You're sure about this?" He nodded, pale but firm. "I'm done hiding." Minutes later, headlights swept the farmhouse yard. Sheriff Dan Miller stepping out with a clipboard, Karen smirking beside him. I met them on the porch, Greg's USB burning a hole in my pocket. "Ethan Carter," Dan drawled, "you've got 24 hours to vacate code violations." Karen chimed in, smug as ever. "Should have taken the deal." I crossed my arms, adrenaline surging. "Funny you mentioned deals, Sheriff. Ever look into Pinewood's books? Or why Brian Foster got $25,000 the month my grandpa's signature got forged?" Dan's face twitched, but Karen cut in. "Lies. He's stalling." I held up my phone, Sarah's article draft glowing on the screen. "Endangered birds, Sheriff. Fraudulent permits. It's all hitting the Herald tomorrow, unless you want to explain why you're backing a thief." Dan hesitated, glancing at Karen, who'd gone ghost white. "We'll review this," he muttered, backing off. Karen spat, "This isn't over," and stormed to her car, tires screeching as she peeled out. I sank onto the porch steps, pulse hammering. The power flickered back on. Someone blinked. My phone lit up with texts from Pinewood residents. Karen cut our water $2,300 fine for complaining. We're with you. Another. She's losing it, yelled at Mike in the street. I grinned, exhausted but alive. Karen was unraveling, her own people turning, and I had a federal ace up my sleeve. She'd pushed me to the edge, but I was about to shove her off hers, and the whole town was watching. The sun was barely up when Willow Springs turned into a circus. News vans lined the road to Grandpa Jack's farmhouse, cameras flashing as Sarah Evans' Herald headline screamed, HOA fraud threatens endangered birds. Karen Mitchell's perfect facade was shattering, and I was holding the hammer. With Greg's financial bombshell, the wetlands ace, and a town full of pissed-off residents, I wasn't just fighting back. I was winning. Grandpa always said, the best trap's the one they set for themselves. Karen had no idea she'd just handed me the rope to hang her reign. I stepped onto the porch, sipping coffee, as Sheriff Dan Miller's cruiser rolled up, alone this time, no Karen in tow. He looked like he'd aged a decade overnight, hat in hand. Ethan, he said, voice low, we need to talk. I smirked, leaning on the railing. About the eviction? Or the $385,000 Karen's been skimming? His jaw tightened. Both. County's launching an audit on Pinewood, FBI sniffing around too, thanks to that bird story. I'm stepping back. My chest swelled, first blood. Smart move, Dan. Tell Brian Foster he's next. Before he could answer, my phone exploded with notifications. Texts from Pinewood residents flooded in. Karen's at the clubhouse, losing her mind. She's threatening lawsuits, nobody's buying it. I grinned, picturing her unraveling in her red blazer. Then Tom Bradley called, breathless. Ethan, federal agents just seized Pinewood's permits, wetlands violations confirmed. Construction's dead. And Greg's files? They're tracing payments to Karen's family, felony charges pending. I punched the air, adrenaline surging. What about the countersuit? Tom laughed. Dismissed. Judge Harper recused himself. Turns out he owns a Pinewood lot. The dominoes were falling fast, but I wasn't done. I called an emergency town hall at the high school auditorium, biggest space in Willow Springs. By 6 p.m., over 500 people packed the seats, Pinewood homeowners, construction workers, even local shop owners drawn by the chaos. The air crackled with tension as I took the stage, Grandpa's 1902 survey in hand. I'm Ethan Carter, I started, voice steady despite my racing heart. This was my grandfather's land, 180 acres stolen by Pinewood's lies. But this isn't just my fight, it's ours. The crowd roared, some cheered, some yelled questions. What about my house? I'm out of work now. I raised a hand, silencing them. No one's losing their home. Existing owners get legal deeds fair and square. The new site? It's protected wetlands, red-cockaded woodpeckers live there, and federal laws on our side. I clicked to a slide of Grandpa's environmental notes, his shaky handwriting glowing on the screen. He knew this land mattered, not just to us, but to nature. We're redesigning Pinewood smaller, smarter, with homes that don't wreck what's sacred. A woman stood, Jenny Brooks, birdhouse rebel. What about Karen's rules? I'm done paying $200 for breathing wrong. Laughter rippled, then applause. Gone, I said. The Willow Springs Community Alliance runs things now, transparent fees, fair votes. You're free. The room erupted, chairs scraping as people hugged, cried, clapped. Rachel Ortiz took the mic, voice trembling. I can build my kid's fence now, thank you. My throat tightened, Grandpa would have loved this. Then the doors banged open. Karen marched in, flanked by two slick lawyers, her face a mask of defiance. This is a sham, she shouted, shoving toward the stage. You can't undo decades of work. I'll sue every last one of you. The crowd booed, Mike Larson yelling, sit down, Karen. I stepped forward, calm as steel. You're too late. Feds have your permits, your books, your threats on tape, courtesy of Sarah Evans. Oh, and your house? Sit smack on my land. Better pack. Her lawyers froze, whispering furiously as her eyes darted, trapped. You little, she started, but a federal agent in a black jacket cut her off, badge flashing. Karen Mitchell, we need you downtown now. The room went dead silent as they escorted her out, her heels dragging, her empire dust. Cheers exploded behind her, shaking the walls. 6 months later, I'm on Grandpa's porch, watching kids bike past houses with wildflower gardens, no more beige prison vibes. The community gardens thriving, Jenny's tomatoes are prize winners, and the wetlands gleam with new trails, signs explaining the woodpecker's comeback. Pinewood's reborn. 40 smaller homes, solar panels, green space galore. Karen? Took a plea deal, financial fraud, 3 years probation, banned from HOA boards. Her mansion's mine now. I turned it into our Alliance HQ, hosting classes and potlucks. Linda Hayes joins me, handing over lemonade. Jack's grinning up there, she says, nodding at the marsh where a woodpecker flits. I pull out his old journal, found it last week. He'd fought developers in '89, same tricks, same greed. Stubborn runs in the family, I laugh. Karen thought she'd crush me, but she gave me something better, a community that fights for what's right. You were with me until the very end. You are all legends. Like this video if you want to receive a fancy house and a cool neighborhood as a gift. Have you ever outsmarted Karen like I did? Share your stories in the comments. I'm soaking up everyone. This was my battle, but this is our victory, proof that one guy can topple a titan when the stakes are high.